Chapter 298. Specifically, there are two forces, venom and amplification. Ydir felt the tips of Kishir's fingers gently wrap around his index and middle fingers. The monster absorbed the amplification magic circle crafted by the mages of the Western Mage Union. The magic it absorbed affected the monster's flesh, which meant you're implying that it seeped into its bodily fluids as well? That's correct. Then Yudhir recalled the moment when he was soaked in the liquid, which had absorbed those two forces. He vaguely remembered the black and cold fluid that had covered his body when he cut off Batumet's tongue. Even though I keep pouring in divine power, the venom that seeped into your body doesn't disappear, but keeps returning, even expanding. I think that's because of the influence of the amplification. You can understand why the abilities that should have recovered with rest have not yet returned. It's probably because I'm spending more energy on blocking the roots of the venom that have burrowed into your body. True to his words, Yudhir was still far from fully recovered. It was a bit better than the first time when he barely summoned a drop of water, but it was still just a few more drops, barely an improvement. It was even hard to say that he had recovered at all. So I met with the mages and reviewed the records they had left when they created the amplification magic and its overall structure. After a few days, Kishir, who had reappeared, asked the mages for information about the structure of the amplification magic. Mikkelin thought that the time had finally come. He had been worrying about what to say if the Duke of Paleta, filled with anger, ordered to eradicate the very existence of the amplification magic from this world. But after the conversation, Kishir, who had been lost in thought for a long time, spoke unexpectedly. I asked them to find the answer to the question that you wanted to know that night. Kishir, briefly explaining what he had said to Mikkelin, spoke with an entirely different stiffness in his voice than Yudhir had ever heard before. Would he have spoken in such an emotionless voice even in front of the mages? Yudhir tried to guess Kishir's attitude, which he had not seen, just from his voice, and slowly questioned. That night, you mean? The task of exploring the traces of magic that remained on the monster's tongue that you gave them, and finding a way to neutralize it. Mikkelin hadn't finished that task until Yudhir had killed Batumet. He had to stop and hadn't resumed the work because he had to deal with Kishir and the cavalry after that. The mages, who had thought the task would remain useless and had forgotten about it, were surprised, as if their eyes would pop out at Kishir's request to resume the task. If the problem is the amplification force interfering while trying to eliminate the venom that had penetrated your body, finding and eliminating the traces of the amplification magic within might be the solution. That was the conclusion Kishir had come to while watching Yudhir's treatment. Yudhir thought about the words he had just heard while firmly holding his body in his arms. Kishir knew more about magic than him, so his words could be solution. But there was a bad thing that bothered him. It's true that I have absorbed energy before, but back then I could clearly see and feel what I was doing. But I didn't feel the same red energy leaking from my hands until the end of this battle. Isn't it a different law for attack and defense even in the same battle? A soft voice continued to speak. Think of it this way. Your body is a battlefield where the internal forces you possess or fighting off the toxicity of the monster that has invaded from the outside. Right now, it's a fierce struggle of survival between the reinforcements of amplification and divine power. Yudir recalled something Enon had once said. There was a strangely consistent part in Kishir's explanation with Enon's words that the process of detoxifying with divine power is not to erase it, but to weaken it and harmonize it. But even so, I don't know whether the answer found by the mages will definitely have an effect on me. Was it really the right path to make the mages touch the amplification circle and Petumot's tongue again for an uncertain outcome? Thinking that Kishir might be doing unnecessary work because of that, he felt a suffocating sensation in his stomach. As Yudir let out a small sigh, Kishir asked him quietly, "Do you think my decision was wrong?" Kishir's choice, the weight of those words pounded heavily on Yudir's chest. Since he returned from death, he had never doubted Kishir's choices. However, this time it was related to Yudir himself, the greatest cause of differences between the two lives, and a choice about an event that had not occurred in his previous life. After hesitating for a long time, Yudir spoke. "Isn't there another option besides this method? Such as, maybe we could reveal it to others and seek more sufficient answers." What flitted across Yudir's mind was Enon. He wondered if Enon's insight and knowledge could give a more unique and clear solution to this situation. "Well, I have called the only remaining medical officer in the cavalry. That was the reason why I called for the second dispatch early. But even if they come as fast as they can, we still have to wait for a few more days, and there is no guarantee that they will immediately provide a solution." At the unexpected words, Yudir, who turned his head, suddenly felt a much stronger grip on his hand than before. "Then, isn't it better to try something we can do more quickly?" His calm words trembled oddly at the end. "I don't want to see you suffer in front of me any longer." He felt as if something had dropped heavily inside his heart. "So, please don't call that a wrong decision." His arm, which had been holding him, grew stronger, pressing their bodies closer than before. The body that was touching him conveyed a strange heat and pain at the same time. Listening to the dark voice, as deep as the bottom of the deepest sea, Yudir recalled his painful breath in his dreams. With gritted teeth, Kishir continued as if he couldn't bear it anymore. "Even more than when I felt my vessel was gradually breaking every hour in some ways, I felt it's harder to endure now. If you don't get better soon, I don't know what I'll end up doing. Even though I try to be patient, it seems like this is my limit." A whisper pleading not to reject him if he cared about him even a little echoed in his ear. Yudir said nothing, suppressing his boiling emotions. The soft touch of the arms that embraced him evoked feelings he could hardly put into words. The pull he felt was irresistible. The heat he felt then was far stronger than the one he felt when their lips first met, and it felt like his breath was taken away multiple times over. Rational thinking would have been distance himself a bit and try to calm Kishir down. After all, he seemed to have lost some of his usual calmness due to excessive worry. But so what? All the countless holes inside him that caused him worries and fears, the anxiety that would creep in when he thought about the past and future, all of that disappeared into the distance when he was close to Kishir. The situation where Kishir, who didn't hide his distressed state caused by worry for him, held him so tightly that he could barely breathe was strangely comforting. It seemed that he, too, had lost his sense of calm. Either forgot about the worry of someone coming in. Maybe it was okay to keep being like this. It was the first time he was aware of this desire since he felt the pull toward Kishir. Perhaps thinking that the trembling mixed in with his bewildered breath was due to pain, Kishir loosened his tight hold on him and moved a bit. "I'm sorry, you must be hurting." At that moment, Eden managed to raise his arm and embraced him. Even without seeing, he knew exactly where to hold him. At either's words, Kishir's body stiffened and his speech stopped altogether. "When did I ever say that your choices were wrong, Commander?" Even though it felt incredibly hard to utter a single word, he didn't stop. "I don't care if you cast a magic spell to release the amplification power or whatever you do. Do anything, but stop doing this. My heart keeps hurting. I think it would be better to face it." Usually, his tongue moved effortlessly, but at that moment, it struggled to convey what he wanted to say. But he didn't need to worry. Soon after, Kishir, who had been rigid and still, held him even tighter. "Right, I can't do that," Kishir whispered with a smile. "Because it won't do if I hurt you more when you're already in pain."